Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach my heart to impart everywhere your delight. Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach all men how to spin clouds of gloom into light. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at our rose? Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Let each tone silence groan, earth and heaven unite. Morning laughter, evening tears, snow and blossoms, all fade. Joy must sing in the night to face change unafraid. Nightingale, nightingale, nightingale.
We all think that happiness is when we can do what we want to do. But our Guru Paramhansa Yogananda, in his book Autobiography of Yogi, shares a story about a saint called Sadashiva Brahma in South India. So he says that once the saint Sadashiva went into a Mohammedan's tent. He never wore any clothes, he never spoke, uttered any word, and he freely roamed the land, and he just walked into somebody's tent, and people there were scared, and the ladies screamed. So he got angry and took a sword, severed his hand, and the saint did not flinch. He just continued to walk out of the tent. So this person, the local ruler, he understood that he's a great saint. He took the arm from the ground, and he ran behind the saint and gave it back to him and asked for forgiveness. He just simply took the hand, put it back in its place. Seeing this, he understood that this is a great saint, and he asked for a spiritual advice, and this is the advice he gave. He did not speak. He used his fingers to write on the sand, and he wrote, "Do not do what you want, and then you may do what you like." The Mohammedan was uplifted to an exalted state of mind and understood that the saint's paradoxical advice to be a guide of soul freedom through mastery of ego. So what is this want and like? So wanting, as they say, it's a prediction that we may be happy if we get something, whereas like is a fulfillment which we experience here and now. And we often cannot distinguish this happiness which will one day end up into a sorrowful state, which will take us towards a downward spiral, or a uplifted happiness. How do we differentiate this? In my own life, I have had a similar experience where I got to distinguish, and I thank God and Gurus for that. So in 2019, we had the 50th celebration of 50th anniversary celebration of Ananda worldwide, and they were also opening the Temple of Light in California at Ananda Village. So we were all going. Dayan Keshwa were taking a group of pilgrims from here, and I wasn't a part of the pilgrimage group, but nonetheless I was going to be a part of the opening ceremony. So I took a different route. I went to Boston first to meet my friends, and those friends, both husband and wife, were my classmates from kindergarten. So I've known them since age of 3, and we are still in touch, and we grew up together. And it was such a joy to see them again, and to we relived those times when we spent together in school, and then we discussed with each other what happened in the years when we parted for college and job, in the rest of this other part of the life. And 3 days just went past, in a blink of an eye. And the next morning I should leave to Ananda village, and I felt a little sad that I'm leaving my friends and I have to go. So the next morning they dropped me at the Boston airport, and they were also very reluctant to, let me go. And my friend, he's an introvert, so he doesn't have much friends. And lucky for me that I'm at Ananda, we have hundreds of friends. So he was almost in tears. But as soon as I boarded the flight, by the time I could board the flight, they reached back to their apartment and they texted, Hari, we just came back to an empty apartment. We miss you a lot. And I was feeling that, a little sad, a little down because I'm leaving them. And evening, 6 p.m., I reached Ananda village, and again I'm meeting all my spiritual friends there. I, meet Daya Keshwa Chika from here at Ananda Delhi, and other friends from other Ananda centers across the world, and sometimes some of them I'm meeting for the first time, and again I'm very joyful this time. Same joy which I felt 2 days ago. But after the event was over, when I walked back to my tent where I was staying, and the tent was in a place called Hiranyaloka. So I was staying at Hiranyaloka, and when I walked back, I felt uplifted, and I felt so content. So I could taste two types of joy: a joy which is binding and which will inevitably, you know, take us towards a downward spiral or towards sadness, or another type of joy which is liberating, very content and uplifting. And how do we differentiate both these joys? Paramhansa Yogananda gives us a prayer in Whispers from Eternity. The prayer is, teach us not to follow the will-o'-the-wisp of false happiness. I'll read the prayer for you. Through the long night of error, we pursued the will-o'-the-wisp of false happiness. Gloom led only to deeper gloom. Our feet, struggling to follow the path of progress, often slipped into ruts and struggled through marshes of disillusionment. The deceiving Elmo's fire of passions lures many people to their doom. Thousands are sucked down into the bog of sense satiety. O divine friend, extinguish with thy breath this false light of destructive glee which has so often misled thy children headed for thy home. Light instead thy beacon of holy radiance, that every eager child pilgrim safely reach thy home. And it is wise, it will be wise of us if we know where to place our happiness. Paramhansa Yogananda said that happiness is, you know, that Ananda's motto or the tagline is joy is within you. Once Paramhansa Yogananda was standing in a dark corner of a street in New York, and a person approached him. Three people approached him, thieves approached him with a gun, and they wanted to rob him. And he said, I will give you what you want. I'll give you the money. But you should understand that I have something greater in my heart which you will never be able to rob, which you will never be able to take. And that's the joy which we need to seek. And we need to fill ourselves with joy born in meditation, that no matter what thief shows up, we can still give that joy to them and not fall into a sorrow or not fall into a self-pity that we have been robbed. Like the Tulsidas story where a thief comes to rob his temple, he took what the thief couldn't take and ran behind the thief to give it to him, because he did not associate his happiness with the golden utensils which was there in the temple for the worship. He associated his happiness with the joy he got when he meditated on Lord Rama. And we should understand that this world is inconveniently arranged to find lasting happiness outside us. Paramhansa Yogananda said that Dr. Lewis, his first and for disciple in the United States, he lost his son because he was so attached to his son. So anything which we are attached to, it might be a property, it might be a relation, if you want to progress spiritually, it will be taken from you. So I like to end with a couple of lines from the poem The Hound of Heaven by Francis Thompson. Our Guru Paramhansa Yogananda liked this poem very much. All which I took from thee, I did but take, not for thy harm, but just that you might seek it in my arms. So let's seek God's joy and happiness in God through meditation and seva. Thank you.
Scriptures can be misinterpreted, misunderstood by us because of our limited perspectives, our limited beliefs. We think completely opposite of what actually these wise ones are trying to say to us. We all have these green glasses and I see only green. Chika has red glasses, she sees only red. Somebody has yellow, other color glasses, they see only that. But the masters that have actually written these scriptures, who have got these words revealed to them by God, they don't wear any glasses. They see the truth as it is. So, from our limited beliefs, we can have these confusions. We all know the story of the Mahabharata, where Draupadi is mistreated in the court. What happens at that time? Supposedly, all the great warriors who fought for rights of the whole society were sitting there. All the great sages and saints of those times were sitting there. But what were they doing? They were quibbling. What is the dharma? What should we do? A heinous crime is being committed in front of them. But what are they wondering? Oh, should I be doing this or should I not? And it took a person with no glasses. They were seeing all of this with their dharma glasses, right? And it took a person like Krishna who could see clearly to come in and tell them, what were you doing? This crime was being committed. If your house is on fire, do you sit there thinking, this is the best way, this is the best way? You just rush out, right? So you have to realize that you cannot think about your dharmas, and you need to understand that there is a higher dharma which supersedes all of these smaller dharmas. So confusion, it's not only those great sages and saints that get confused. So do all of us. We see a lot of times human values also getting eroded in the name of religion, sometimes spiritual pride of our religion sometimes happens, and discrimination based on religion, caste starts to happen, and sometimes we are not able to clearly see that this is not right, because we give these justifications and misinterpretations. So these traps trap the person who is trying to go through his spiritual path. Another trap which causes us discomfort in the spiritual path and is very, very subtle and very difficult to find out: the pride of intellectual learning. We feel that, yeah, we should learn more and more about the path. That is how we get wise. But there's this story of Sri Yukteswarji that Yogananji tells in Autobiography of a Yogi. And there is this great Pandit who comes to Yukteswarji, and Master says that he just goes on with all of these quotations from the Mahabharata, from Ramayana, Gita, Upanishad, probably for hours it sounds like, and then finally he's silent, and Yukteswarji then says, I am still waiting to hear you speak. And this man is startled. What do you mean? I've just exhausted myself talking right now. And Yukteswarji said, I'm still waiting for you to speak. And all of these things that you have quoted to me, have you really understood them? Have you internalized these truths? Are they your own? Are they your own experiences? And this man, defeated, he says, no, I don't think they are. So intellectual knowledge, what does it do? We think, yeah, this is the right thing to do, and that leads to confusion. It leads to spiritual pride in our wisdom as well. And it's very, very difficult to spot. We've all heard of this great sage Ved Vyas, who compiled the Vedas in the present form that they exist today. And his son Sukhdev is all ready now to go for learning with a guru. And Ved Vyas is thinking, I am the greatest guru. I have done all of this and he's my son. And he feels that thing, why let my son go? I relate to him. Yeah, why let my son go? Let him just be with me. I can teach him everything. I mean, the whole world comes to learn from me. So what does Sukhdev say? He said, leave me alone, you have Maya. And then he leaves his father, and his father then says, okay, then go to Janak, who's a great king, we all know, but he was also a great sage. Go to him and he will quench your desire for wisdom. So Sukhdev goes there, and they have all of these scriptural discourses and everything, and suddenly there's a fire in the palace of Janak. And all things start burning, and it's very sudden, and all of these books that Sukhdev had of the Upanishad starts to burn, and he gets very angry, and he says, what kind of a palace do you have? I mean, you have no fire control, fire safety laws or anything. And Janak just waves his hand, and the illusion of fire that he had created vanishes. And he says, you're still attached to your books and your learning, Sukhdev. And then he realizes, yeah, that was a mistake. Now I'll come to the point of what I was trying to say about my son. So on Friday night, just 2 days back, I went to the airport to drop him at night, and I left him. And as Ved Vyas, eternally Indian parents they cannot let their child leave the home. So I came back quite miserable, not very, but a little miserable, unhappy, and that emptiness, you feel that security is he's in the home, he's well taken care of. So all of that, and then 2 flights, and customs can be crazy, and big unfamiliar airports and layovers. So all of that was kind of disturbing me. So then I had to give the satsang today, and I was kind of busy before that, so I thought, let me at least think about it, read a little bit about it once I got back at like 11-12 at night. So I started reading, and Master talks about the happiness thieves, right? So I started reading, and it said, that happiness is within. And that time I was not ready to accept that. So he said, happiness is within, and even in trials, you can find that happiness within you. If you cannot find happiness in trials, in everything, then you find happiness in nothing. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, so where do I find this happiness? So I said, I thought to myself, you might as well use the teachings, right? So when you're reading them. So I started to feel in my heart all that fear and pain of sending him off. And I started to change that with joy. And I changed that fear with joy. And then I asked Master's help, and I felt his presence. And I said, just give me some joy, change this fear into joy, this agitation. It took some effort of a few minutes. Then I went on to reading something else. Then I came back and checked, am I still feeling that? And then I realized that the agitation was starting to leave, and there was this flowy feeling in the heart, little joyful. So yeah, I think we were getting there somewhere. I said, good, okay. So even though the circumstance didn't change, I could find, and I realized that it's a choice. We can choose to be miserable, we can choose to be happy. What do I choose every moment of the day? But then the question that came to mind is, you can't just sit here and be happy all the time. You have to work, right? When you have a trial, we have to do something about it. So the next thing I read is, of course, they have a solution for everything, is Nishkam Karm, which the Gita says all the time. And Swami Kriyananda writes about it very nicely, of how to go about it. He says, rather than focusing on your desire, your goal, make that goal, but focus on putting energy into that goal, right? Put all your focus in that direction. So I said, okay, let me try that as well. So now I can't do much with him. Just a rider for all of the parents who want to control their kids' lives after school also. We have to realize that now a click of a button and they disconnect from us. We cannot tell them anything anymore. Do this in the morning, do this is how you study, this is the course you take. Nothing works. So I'm like, I can't do anything now. What can I do? So I believe in the power of prayer, like everybody does. And I say, I think I realized the only thing I could do was pray for him, that Masters be with him, right? That is the only thing I had. And I said, let me put energy in that direction. And I did that in the heart again. I'm praying and sending him good wishes and goodwill and positive vibrations and everything that I could think of. And then what did I realize? I realized that because I had let go of those desires and fears of disappointment, of fear that will he be able to study hard, will he be safe in these flights, will he get a good job after his studies, will he, have the focus to be able to work well, that I was actually able to focus on prayers, and I was able to focus on giving that energy. And again, that was a good thing. So that gave me a lot of joy again, because once the agitation anyway was a little bit decimated. So that's what happened. Then the third thing I read was that Master says, keep your ego aside. I mean, we read this all the time, I know. We keep the ego aside and think that God is the doer. And that was it. I said, now I'm in the flow, let me do this. This is better than that coconut story of mine. And I need to stop using food stories at satsang. And this is what I'm going to talk about in satsang. So let me try this also. And yeah, so I just felt that I'm a witness, and all of this that is happening in my heart, I can observe. Right? All of this was happening, and prayers were happening, and joy was coming, and everything, and I was just a witness to it. And that was such a release. I mean, I think it just kind of helped me to stand back and watch the situation as it unfolded over the next 2 nights, because he was still in transit and everything. So I think these teachings really, really work. And in religion, when we start on the spiritual path, this is what we have to do, right? Master said, even 1% of my teachings, if you can take in, internalize, make your own truths. We feel, oh, ye to choti si cheez thi. I agree, it was a chota sa cheez. But then we have bigger trials. When we start practicing in the smaller things in our life, then we can start to practice in all of those trials and bigger things that happen to us in our life. And I don't think I have time for the next story. But yeah, so true happiness really actually comes when we give everything to God and we allow Him to be the doer in our life. Then whatever comes, we are able to accept it as prasad, as something is divine will, acceptance, and then we can truly be happy in every situation. Thank you.